And Ms. Cheney, we are now live.
Hey, Ron, there's that echo again.
Ms. Cheney, we are live. Go ahead.
Okay, since Ashley's on vacation and she can't get internet, I'm going to be leading the meeting this evening. And I guess the first off, we do the roll call
Yes. Ms. Cheney,
here.
Mr. Pridnoff.
Present.
Mr. Simile,
Present.
Ms. Snyder is absent, and I believe Mr. Wilkinson is also absent.
That's correct.
So then we will need motions to excuse them.
Motion to
excuse. Oh, go ahead. I'll second.
excuse Ms. Snyder and I'm sorry,
Mr.
who else?
Wilkinson,
Mr. Wilkinson.
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Okay, so the next step is to set the agenda and adopt it. Do we have any changes for the agenda this evening?
I apologize. I can't see it in front of me. I'm just trying to get to my house, but hoping that I was on there. We have a few minutes to discuss the shifting of a VRF speed bump.
It's on there, Mr. Pridnoff.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Motion
Sorry
to
again for not having looking.
Okay, we have a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now we have the minutes to approve from May 10th. We have a motion. Any
motion to approve minutes.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the first thing we have on the agenda tonight is our waste collection RFP. And I
Hey.
guess, Mr. Hurth, you want to discuss that?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting feedback, so I'm going to take these out because I can't hear myself talk. So we have issued the RFP for waste collection. It went out on Friday, June 11th, which was this last Friday. I sent it directly to Rumpke, to our representative there, since we are currently their client. There was also an ad that was posted in the Enquirer newspapers to send them to a link on our website. That link is in your agenda this evening. So if you wish to go take a look at the RFP and what's in there, you're more than welcome to do so. The RFP was built off the specifications from the previous contract that we had with Rumpke, including some modifications for consideration. One of the things that we felt that we needed to try and deal with in this contract was some of the litter we seen strewn around the multifamily residences. So we are asking Rumpke to help us come up with a solution for dealing with that issue. In addition to, as we had discussed earlier in committee, whether or not we would be able to offer a senior rate to people 65 and older. In addition, I'm getting weird things here. Sorry. In addition to looking at a rate for people who are emphasizing recycling, we also asked them to take a look at various scenarios that would increase our pickup of recycling from every other week to weekly, and then also looking at boosting our residents' ability to recycle more items. I know in our household, we have pretty much maxed out the 65-gallon container for the recycling. We probably need a 95. All of those things will come with some kind of cost, but I did talk to the rep from Rumpke on Friday to verify some of the things and have a discussion about what we were currently doing. Hopefully they will be helpful to us in trying to find some additional solutions. In addition to that, we asked them to help us find a more environmentally friendly way to deal with spring brush pickup and also deal with fall leaf collection. They do that in other communities. Particularly, we're looking at trying to supplement what our maintenance guys are doing to try and cut down the cost on that labor-intensive program. So there's going to be a lot of discussion once we get that. Our intent would be to review over the next month all of these, hopefully all of these proposals that we're going to get in. I'm not sure who else will bid other than Rumpke, but this will probably be a major point of discussion for next month's executive committee meeting. I'll also be in touch with Ms. Snyder, and I'm sure she'll be in touch with the members of the committee after we get those proposals in on July 7th, which is the date that those are due to us. I think that's right. I double check. Yep, Wednesday, July 7th. Any questions?
May I be recognized for a question?
Okay,
I'm wondering if it's possible to have any consideration for also food waste, as that's becoming an issue. And I had a couple residents actually talk to me about that. I know it's not necessarily in Rumpke's vein or others, but that's another stream. It's actually about 30% of the weight of general waste from people's trash is food waste, and they're trying to increase that. So I wanted to see if that could be added or somehow considered.
Mr. Vainharn, we are
Thank you.
currently working with Hamilton County Recycling with a third-party group called Go Zero. We had our first meeting with them today and addressing things like the yard waste and the leaf recycling and food waste is all a part of that program. We had our initial discussion with them. It looks like something that we would like to pursue. Mr. Lanza, do you have anything to add to that? This actually would not be within Rumpke's purview.
Yeah, as Ron said, it's not necessarily within Rumpke's purview. We were made aware of this opportunity through our partners with the county, through Hamilton County Solid Waste. We had our initial meeting today to kind of learn more about their organization, as well as kind of vet our needs and look for opportunities for quote unquote synergies between the Village of Gulf Manor and the Go Zero nonprofit. We think that there's possibly some potential to meet both of our needs. They have a logistical challenge, and with that, they're looking for possible venues to do staging and dumping for composting. We possibly have an opportunity, we possibly have that space. So we are going to meet with, I believe it's the director of Go Zero, Ron, myself, and our partner with Hamilton County Solid Waste. We're going to meet with them in, I believe, 2 weeks to kind of review some possible sites and get a better idea of what is possible and what isn't possible. Hopefully, we'll have more to report on that at the July meeting.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. When I reviewed the RFP, it didn't really mention food waste, so I didn't know that that was basically defaulted or included in it.
Yeah, and let me, in case it wasn't clear, Go Zero, from what was explained to me, myself and Ron today, Go Zero specializes in the composting of food waste. So, like I said, there might be an opportunity there to meet the question and the needs that Councilmember Van Harn raised just now, as well as meet some of our other logistical needs, specifically around making the fall leaf collection and spring brush collection slightly more efficient.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And one quick curiosity is, does Rumpke for general waste, general waste disposal, do they basically bill, because of they have to have a truck and a person and, pick up? Or is there a weight consideration? Because I actually kind of know that if there's a big diversion of food waste, that's a big diversion of weight that Rumpke or that type of waste that's being hauled away would be changed. Is there an effect or not really, or it's hard to say? That would be up to Rumpke. I was just curious if you happen to know that.
Yeah, I don't know that specifically. My experience with working with Rumpke and previous roles I've had is that the pricing is mostly based on factors such as the number of residences, how dense the housing is, meaning how many vehicles and manpower they need or staffing power that they'll need to efficiently meet the needs of the route, as well as any other opportunities with partner neighboring communities. That factors into it as well. For example, if they are already doing routes, I'm just going to throw this as a hypothetical. If they're already doing routes in a neighboring community like Amberley Village on a Thursday, is the components of that route similar enough to meet the needs of Gulf Manor? And then, especially when recycling, a big component is just the pricing on the secondary market for recyclable materials. But that's something that we can definitely look into, assuming that Rumpke submits a RFP or a proposal.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like we're on a good track to, as I just said, keep it in consideration, and it sounds like you will, so that's great. Thank you, Ms. Cheney, for recognizing me.
You're welcome.
So just, can you hear me now? Is there an echo?
No.
Are we good? Okay. This is fixing on the fly. What I wanted to mention is when we get this RFP from Rumpke, this will be something that we will take a look at with the committee. So the executive committee will have the opportunity to weigh in on the various things that are being proposed by Rumpke. The list of items in the RFP that is our wish list or things that we're saying that we'd like to accomplish in the RFP itself are things that we can certainly have additional discussion about. And also if there are things that we think of that we'd like to add, or maybe we will build on other ideas, that's all a part of this process. So by no means, once they submit the RFP, that's not the end of the discussion or the end of what we'll do. Everybody will have a chance to give input.
That's helpful too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no more questions? It's okay to go on with the next, our old business. The raised crosswalk on Vera Avenue.
Okay, so Mr. Lanzer had reached out to our road engineer, Courtney, to look at preliminary discussions about cost and adding the crosswalk. Their recommendation was to hold off on doing anything like that until we actually have the road project completed. At this time, there is one speed hump that is scheduled to go in on Elbrook after the Gulf Manor sign as you go south on Elbrook towards Lucinaville. And then there will be two speed humps in the Vera block between, and actually it's a large block, between Elbrook and Fair Oaks. And then there will be one speed hump between Fair Oaks and the Corporation line at the end of the street. I believe there has been discussion about placement of those, and I think Mr. Pridnoff wanted to speak on that this evening.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Ron and Andy, for all your work on this. The idea that I was proposing here is to not necessarily add a new speed bump, as I think we had explored also that the cost would be actually in the thousands of dollars, but rather to locate that speed bump at the crosswalk that we're talking about painting. That goes, I don't know, it's about 2,400 Vera, I believe, is where that location is. And then it was just a matter of getting clear on how much that's gonna, does that cost anything different, number one, and number two, if it doesn't cost anything, is that something that we can that we can widen and see how much that would cost. Again, all kind of subject to the engineer's recommendation. So that's kind of where I am understanding things are now. I don't know if there's been further information that has been uncovered since then.
No, in fact, the administration does not determine where the speed humps go. It's actually Chief Campbell. Soon we are going to.
Oh, really?
Soon, and I think he's there. Chris, I'm pulling you in.
Yeah,
Big rope. So what we'll do, what will happen is Chief Campbell's going to make a recommendation to us, as he has with the rest of the streets, as to where one would be located. Then the street engineer determines if there's any infrastructure that would be detrimental underneath where the proposed speed hump would be. You know, the speed hump is going to be exactly like the rest of them that we put in last fall, which are actually better than the ones that we put on Ardmore 3 or 4 years ago. I believe they're a little bit higher, a little bit longer. So I think certainly we can have a discussion about this going forward. But at this time, I think, as we mentioned, there was not a recommendation from the road engineer to do anything additional other than what we already have planned.
Ms. Cheney, okay, Ms. Cheney, if I may comment, Councilman Pridenoff had shared with me a piece of this that I didn't hear him reiterate, which was that this particular crosswalk is heavily used on the Sabbath for folks, going to their services, and that was part of the rationale for this placement, was the heavy use of this particular crosswalk. I'm just saying that for the benefit of the administration and for Chief Campbell in their consideration. Thank you.
Sure, I think the first thing.
Sorry, if I could just interrupt you there. Yeah, I really want to say thank you very much to Mayor Densmore for pointing that out. There was one other point which I think I had mentioned in a previous meeting, but maybe in regards to this discussion, in the 5 years that I have lived on Vera, when I moved there may have been 3 or 4 young children who I would see on a very regular basis outside. In the last 5 years, it's about 20 plus. And I have seen, multiple incidences where children make mistakes that children are going to make. And I've seen, where motorists make poor decisions, which they have more faculties to do something about. But I feel that, with the addition of a speed bump, that would greatly enhance the safety of that part of our neighborhood. And just to emphasize how strongly I feel that would be an excellent location. And I appreciate that this is a medium maybe to mention that to Chief Campbell. Appreciate your assistance in trying to solve this problem.
yeah, it's not a problem at all. I don't have the locations in front of me where we look where they would make sense, but I have no say over the cost. So if it makes sense to adjust it without any cost impact, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but that decision ultimately is not mine.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that we have speed humps, and I don't think we need to add anything to the project. It's just a matter of location and making sure that they can actually be put where they think they are. So I would recommend the project, and I'll just jump into this real quick, Ms. Cheney, if you don't mind. We have been assured by the construction company that they are going to start staging the project on June 21st. So there will be pipes and equipment starting to show up. They're going to start saw cutting the road, which will not affect parking initially. So they can install the water main. That'll be the first project done. So we're probably 2 or 3 months out from deciding exactly where the speed humps are going to go. So we have plenty of time. We can certainly do a site visit with Mr. Pridenoff and Ms. Cheney, since you both live on that street, with the mayor and Mr. Lanzer and the road engineer, and we'll just make it a party, and we'll all take a look and see where the best place to put the speed humps are.
I know
Fantastic. Thank you.
From living here, though, I'm put my 2 cents in worth. From living here for 36 years, though, the speeders seem to pick up speed around the 2400 block and then hit it all the way down the street. A speed bump definitely in that area is definitely needed. And then if you put one on further down by the walkway, they're going to be too close together. We definitely have to have one between the walkway and maybe the 2400 block. I know it's up to the police department. If we can all look at that, I don't know, when it comes time or however you want to handle it. To make
Yeah,
sure.
we have time in the next month or so to
Okay.
gather and take a look and see how we can address it.
Okay,
Yeah, and when I've made recommendations in the past, I've looked at what you're looking at, Sharon, is where cars are coming down Vera.
mhm,
Are they likely to kind of pay less attention and start picking up speed? That's where I made recommendations in the past of where, if I'm driving down the road and I'm not on my brakes, where do I start picking up the most speed? And that's where I would recommend those spots go. That crosswalk that we're referring to, that sidewalk, it comes out of Amberley in between two residences at 2400 Lasanaville. It goes in between, at 2400 Vera. And then it goes across the service drive and comes out on Lasanaville in between the same 2400 block. So it lines up with Hamel Avenue. There may be a speed hump that's in that area, so we can definitely look at that.
okay. Okay, thank you. Any other feedback? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the playground equipment replacement.
So we met with Mayor Densmore and Miss Snyder and the designer from Adventurous Child a couple weeks ago. And the thing that this committee and finance need to be aware of is that that $50,000 grant that we're getting needs to be used by the end of September. I have not been able to gain some clarity that we had agreed to try and discern, because the person who would tell us that's been on vacation. So hopefully I can find that out later this week. But there were a couple of pieces of homework that were to be done. Miss Snyder was going to determine, she was going to reach out to some other communities and see if there were other vendors. Mr. Mayor Densmore was going to do some research on rehabbing the current playground equipment that was there. At this point, I don't know that any of that has been done, but that's all I have to report on that at this time.
I can add that I have begun my research, but I have not concluded. I don't have anything that I would like to share at this time concerning that piece about looking at rehab. I have discovered that it is possible. I have not gotten as far as identifying any local contractors that would be able to do that to approach, but that's where I am with that piece of it.
Mr. Hirth, can you provide any insight on, first of all, the opportunity of utilizing the grant that's available? Is that something that could potentially be used towards rehabbing the equipment? And if not, what kind of time frame do we have to do homework and research before we lose the opportunity to utilize the grant?
So the last we heard, the money had to be spent by the end of September. The project needs to be complete by the end of December. I went back and looked up the spec sheets. Specifically, we requested new playground equipment. So I don't know that rehabbing the current equipment is going to be a part of what they will allow that funding. That's the question that needs to be answered once we talk with Hamilton County Planning.
And realistically, given the amount of time, that it takes to start the project, or at least line up a contractor, what kind of time do we have to play around with this and make decisions and research different options and stuff. Like when do we have to make a decision by?
I don't have an answer for that. Every
Okay.
day that passes is another day we might not get that grant. So I know Ms. Snyder was interested in having something that we could match an additional $50,000 to so we could make a bigger splash. There are some ideas about softening the landscaping there by adding some additional grass, a different type of composite where we currently have the mulch that's down there. We talked about adding some trees and some seating areas for the adults. Certainly if we did that, that would certainly probably be something that could be done in conjunction with fixing the playground equipment that's currently there. But again, we're kind of flying in the dark until we have a clear answer from Hamilton County on what those funds can be spent for.
All right, thank you.
I would, thanks for your question, Mr. Simley. I'd also acknowledge that Councilwoman Cheney was also present in our meeting. I have not received information back from the contractor that was advising us on some of the possibilities of putting in the playground equipment. We had asked, the three of us had asked for some examples of previous work that they've done, and to send some links where we can look and actually go to some of these other locations and look at the playground, different configurations and things. I have not received that response. He said he was happy to do that, but I haven't received that response. I don't know if anybody else did, but that's in play as well. Oh, and I finally also wanted to say none of us are interested in losing the opportunity for this grant money. It's very much on our mind. I appreciate you raising that point. It was on everyone's mind that we don't want to lose the possibility of using this money to better the park. So we're all very mindful of that.
Also, for those of you who were not at this meeting, the questions also asked were that the playground equipment, it does start out small, but it's all that we can afford right now with the grant. But it is playground equipment that can be added onto as money becomes available. So it can grow and get larger. The equipment down there now, I think is from the 90s, and it's extremely rusty. As far as refurbishing it, I'm not sure that can be done and make our insurance company happy. Right now, the problem, from what I understand, is that our insurance company doesn't want to cover it anymore. So if anything happens, we're going to be in trouble. So I don't want to lose this 50,000 either, when it's something that we can purchase and then build onto as we go. And the guy that designed the equipment, he is a father. He has 2 young children, and he does this for a living. The question was asked, have you done this for other municipalities? And I believe he said no, but he does design for daycares and educational centers and I believe schools. He has pretty good knowledge. He's been doing this for a long time. So at least he's given us something that we can start with and move on with. So I just wanted you all to know that, because we are in a time crunch.
So one of the things that we had discussed when we were meeting at the park last week before last, was our need, like we need to do with the village, we need council and the residents to take a look at that park with what we have that's currently down there and come up with a master plan. I know that there are a lot of ideas that people would like to see executed there. There are some structural things that need to be done first and concurrent with any improvements that we make down there. I think a key piece of information that we're missing is input from our residents about the kinds of activities they would like to see us doing there. I think the plan that was originally done for the park that created the amphitheater and the current snack shack restroom that's down there was devised maybe 15, 20 years ago. And there was never a master plan in terms of phases of putting those pieces together. And what it has turned into is a hodgepodge of various different things that don't look alike, that were done by various contractors and don't match. That part of it kind of drives me crazy. I would like us to have a professional looking, cohesive play area, recreational area for our park. And I think that raises the specter of, do we put together a park board again to help drive this project and help us make decisions? Also, with the thought that they would also actively work with us to apply for grants to finish the park. Of particular note is the amphitheater itself. Right now, it's a hole in the ground. The police department have told us we have things going on down there that maybe we don't want to have going on. It's not usable at night in the dark, so we need to take a look at putting lighting back there. I mean, there's a number of things that we have some good bases to do things on, but we need to figure out what the immediate things are that we can do to start to increase the use of the park, in addition to having a long-term plan and a way to know that we need to invest X amount of dollars this year on a specific project, and then do the same thing in phase 2 the following year, phase 3 the next year, and so on. I think we've seen that the Food Truck Fridays, if organized well, which for 2 events, I think we've done pretty darn good. So hats off to the community group, Go Golf Manor. In addition to that, I think there are opportunities that we could better use the park to help facilitate some of those things. And part of that is changing the structure or adding additional places where food trucks could be parked, places for people to sit. This last Friday was pretty miserable with the cicadas buzzing everybody in the head. But I'm hoping that the weather is conducive enough that on the July 2nd event, that the food trucks can be closer to the concession stand where we can actually park things in the grass and not have them sink. But those are things that we need to think about going forward. How do we do a food truck event in the fall after we've had rain, or in the spring, or some of those kinds of things? And I think having a park board or a group of people to help advise us or to start thinking about those things would be a really positive start into getting hold of what we need to do at that park.
I'd like to add that we had a park board in the 90s. And Alan Safaro, I believe, was part of that and ran it. We came up with 3 phases for the park at that time. Phase 1, of course, was the play equipment. Phase 2, I believe, was the amphitheater. And then phase 3 was the water park, which of course has never been done. And some of the other stuff wasn't done either. But I think the park board is definitely needed. We had quite a few members of the community there. We probably had 15 people involved. Our police chief at that time was also involved, and our fire chief. And some really good information came out of it. We did do a survey with all the residents of what they wanted. And I think we probably only got like 125 surveys, but it was better than nothing. So I think it's a really good idea to come up with a park board again. Like to know what other people think.
I'm in support of that. We, when we had our meeting, just for the benefit of the other members that weren't there, with Ms. Cheney and Ms. Snyder, myself and Mr. Hirth, we all were in agreement that this would be a great idea, particularly the point, I think Ms. Cheney was the one that raised the idea of having young people involved in this as well, to help guide us, so it's not just a bunch of old people like me that are making some of these decisions here, including folks from the community, so that things like for instance, the playground equipment that we're getting feedback from parents, that are using that equipment, and that, we're getting feedback from young people about what kinds of things they want to see in the park. So I wanted to make sure that piece was there. I think there was some really good ideas that were brought up in support of this. I've wondered about if it would just be a park and recs board that also could help, serve as a planning. Planning. What's the word for it?
An advisory board.
Yeah, an advisory board. For thoughts about what kinds of recreational things we might do, or when there are ideas that come, can help advise those groups about the process of using the park.
May I comment, Ms. Cheney?
Yes.
First of all, I think it's an awesome idea to think about the park board. Also, I do believe that it's cliche now, but if you build it, they will come. I think as we improve the park, we may have people competing to use it, and a park board would be important to help manage that, keep a calendar, do any arrangements, anything that's needed, more than just developing it. But I think it's going to be something that's going to need it as we improve it. And secondly, I know I sound like a broken record, but I think it's a great time for the Parks Board maybe to be formed, but also with part of its intention to develop it for some kind of 75th anniversary activity next year, or to celebrate it next year. I think there may be some grants available to help improve it for that, things like that. I think it can be more than, there can be a lot attached to building a board or people that are doing recreation and working on improving that, one of our biggest assets. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to kind of echo everyone's sentiment here. I think it's a great idea. Definitely something I'd love to get involved in. I mean, I just kind of, as we're sitting here and as I'm listening to everybody, I put out a little feeler, for some of the Jewish community who have a lot of little kids, and, people would love a park that they could go to and really feel comfortable. And obviously we see the amount that the volunteer park is used. It's just not, it's being underutilized. And I mean, the first thing that popped out from two different people who've responded is they would love a splash pad. They would love, more shaded area. I think even looking at some of the other parks that I've been to around Cincinnati, some of the nicer parks in Wyoming, where I grew up, there's like a picnic table area, which is shaded and covered, and, kind of looking at those ideas. I think this is a great idea, and I'd love to get involved.
I have a question from the Finance Committee perspective. On the existing grant, the $50,000, is there a match component? I can't remember.
There is not. However, the cost of the equipment that we were looking at, the village is probably going to have to chip in about $15,000 to do the project. There was nothing under $50,000 that we could accomplish.
So just from a Finance Committee perspective, I mean, you're looking at that point, we're putting in $15,000 to get $50,000 worth of equipment for this grant. If we can get started with the park board and making it grand and all that stuff, I don't want to see us, stepping over dollars that are basically, that we're not matching. From a Finance Committee perspective, I don't want to see us miss out on $50,000 of money that might not be available to us if we pause to take in all these great ideas. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think we need to be able to build upon what was proposed or something like that. I don't want us to miss out on the funds that are due or that we've been awarded.
I agree.
One of the things that I would ask of our council as a whole is this evening there's going to be a fairly in-depth discussion about our fire services. There are a lot of other bigger issues that we need to tackle, particularly economic development. And when I say that, that means getting our business district back up and running and producing for us, in addition to dealing with some of the residential areas that are issues. Having a park board who would drive things like how do we replace our playground equipment, obviously with assistance from the administration on financial issues and stuff like that. But I believe having a group of people like that together to help make some of those decisions and do the community outreach would be very helpful to allow the administration to focus on some of the bigger things that we have to get done to be able to move forward from where we currently are.
Okay, so how do we move forward and get the park board started? We don't want to put burden on Mr. Hirth because or Mr. Lanzer. How can we move ahead with that? Should we put it?
Isn't there a group that Dale McBride that kind of knows how to do that, Ron? Or is that they could actually help take some leadership? Sorry, Miss Cheney. I was just going to say.
Yeah, McBride Dale is probably not the group to assist with that. I think at this point, it's a matter of getting some folks together. I believe I had heard that Mr. Zafiro had explored some interest in getting involved again in working with parks and applying for grants, which he is pretty good at. Actually, he's very good at it. The only problem was he would always find things that we had to match that we didn't have a lot of money to do. The good thing about that is we, at the moment, are in a much better financial position to consider those kinds of opportunities going forward. I think there is, I don't know, I'd be glad to hear the mayor's ideas on this, because essentially, I would see the park board as probably being a subcommittee of the executive committee.
Yeah, I would ask of our solicitor whether it's something that, I can just declare, or ask Ms. Snyder to declare in terms of speeding it up and, helping with this process, of course, getting everyone's feedback on how to populate such a board. In terms of the actual process of what needs to happen, I'm sure we can get an answer from Mr. Donelon on that. And in terms of whether it's a subcommittee of executive or not, I need to look at different options concerning that. As I mentioned before, in terms of having a Parks and Rec board or a Parks and Rec commission, I've been looking at, for the past 2 years here, ever since the beginning of the community engagement committee, one of the priorities of that committee was the reinstitution of our recreation committee. And so there's, it's been advised that we wait a year and do in January some of the reformulations of committees, but I've been advised by Mr. Donelon that we don't necessarily need to do that. We could do that here, here at mid-year. And I think that's certainly what we should be doing with the park board here. But I would just say, let's get some clarification from our solicitor about the different ways that we might do this.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. Anybody else? Is that something that Ms. Snyder should do? Contact, or was that the mayor will contact Mr. Donelon?
I'm happy to do it. I know she's where she's at. I missed the beginning of this meeting. I'm aware that where she's at, she doesn't have good internet or cell phone connection, and I could maybe schedule a conference call with Ron and our solicitor to look at these different options. I got good cell phone service where I'm at.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And now we move on to the gateway sign replacement.
All right. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was muted there. Mr. Mayor, I would honestly, in the executive committee report, we should ask Mr. Donald this evening just to give some brief direction on that. I'm sure he'd be happy to weigh in.
Sure. I was thinking that having a having a conference call would give us the freedom to talk through, spend some time going through several of the options that might not have afforded to us this evening with our agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
On the gateway sign replacement, really nothing new on that at the moment. Mr. Pridnoff was working with a benefactor to help to finance this project. And I believe the last communication I had with him was that I believe through that benefactor, they were working with some alternate vendors to give us a different quote.
Yes, that's correct. I actually got back one of the quotes today. I actually was told around 4 o'clock that there may be another one coming in. Yeah, there was another one that came in. I have not had a chance to look at them. I mean, it literally just came in 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
We're
That's
still
great.
working with about 2 or 3 different vendors, and I will update you and I'll update council as those come in and as it becomes relevant.
Okay, and that probably would be considered a contract, so we would do that separately from a public meeting.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it on that.
Okay, Vera Road project.
I had already mentioned my report on that. The staging starts on the 21st. The actual construction begins the following week, which is the 28th. The first phase of the project should not affect parking. We are having a second construction meeting sometime next week where we'll have more specifics about when they intend to do the Faro service drive. And that's really all we know right now. The big thing is they are supposed to be starting on the 21st, and we've been assured of that. Hopefully, Mr. Pridnoff and Ms. Cheney, you should have received a letter from Adlita explaining. I'm sorry.
I was saying it just came.
You got it today?
I haven't gotten one.
Yeah, I just got mine in the mail today, coming home from work.
Okay.
Well, good. And then we have pending business and we have 7 minutes left.
Yeah, there's really nothing to report on the pending items.
Okay.
Most of our time, as you will see this evening, has been spent on working the fire department issue. And hopefully we'll clear that soon and we'll be able to get to some of these other issues.
Okay, good. Anything else? Announcements?
Yeah, actually, your next committee meeting will be on Monday, July 12th at 5:30 p.m. live
Hey,
in Chambers.
that's great.
We're getting ready to welcome you back. We will be streaming the council meetings and committee meetings live on the website. However, people who wish to participate and address council will need to come to 6450 Weehee Road and appear in council chambers to do so.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Ron, when we stream them, will they then also be recorded, or is it just streaming?
No, it'll be streaming in archive like we've been doing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? I'll second it. Nobody has. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you at
Thanks.
the next meeting.